Sherry Shepherd, and this is Marketplace Monday. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. Listen, I don't know if my intro was choppy or not, but listen, we're going to keep moving. The show must go on, and I'm super excited. As you all, if any of you saw my video from last week, you know how excited I am about my guest today. Listen, we are joined today by Terrell Turner, CPA. Listen, and I'm telling you, when I tell you, you want to stay tuned for today, and if you can't, because I understand it's lunchtime on a Monday, you definitely want to go back and catch the replay, because we are talking about numbers today. You know, I did a little something last week for Marketplace Monday, but I cannot, I can't hold a candle to what you're gonna hear today. All right, so Terrell is a CPO. He's CPA. He's the CEO of a New York Times recognized accounting firm. And he's 3 times he's been recognized as a 40 under 40 CPA, an award-winning Black CPA, a 2-time top 20 global finance influencer, and a New York Times Square featured CFO. I told you all, I only bring you the best of the best when we have these seminars and we have these webinars. But listen, I'm not going to get into all of that, because I'm going to let Terrell loose, and we are going to learn some high-level things today about the importance, again, of your numbers. So many businesses, so many business owners, they miss it when it comes to their numbers. But listen, I'm going to go ahead and bring him on the stage, and this is going to be amazing. Hi, Terrell.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. It is my pleasure. And listen, you are my first actual guest today. So, you know, usually I'm doing Marketplace Monday by myself, but I can't think of a better person to kick this off with. So this is going to be our new podcast. So we're looking into studios and all that good stuff, you all. But listen, like I said, I'm not going to ramble on. We're going to talk about some numbers today. And we're also, and I don't want you to forget, and I will be remiss if I do not mention that Terrell is our guest webinar facilitator for our upcoming Black Business Startup Boot Camp on September the 14th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. You're going to get a little smidgen of what you're going to get in that webinar. But I mean, listen, we're just going to talk. We're just going to talk about it today. And you know, we had a conversation last week, and I was so amped up. And I was just telling Terrell, I was so amped up after our conversation. We just kind of went over what we're going to talk about today. And I was hyped. I was hyped up, you all. You know, and a lot of times what I find with my organization, with the National Black Business Owners Association, which is part of the reason why I founded this organization, is that we have a lot of great business owners who are just like me. You're great at providing the service, right? But maybe not so great with operations. I think a lot of times our businesses, we are denied access to capital because of technicalities. And one of those major technicalities that I hear, especially from my banker friends, and for those of you that attended Financing Your Business at Any Level in May, you all know what I'm talking about. Bilal from Fifth Third Bank just gave you the rundown of why a lot of loan proposals and loan requests are rejected, and it comes down to your numbers. I can't express to you how important it is that you are a master with your operations, and within your operations is administration and your accounting. So, Terrell, tell us what, as an accountant, right? You know, he specializes in law firms, but that's a business as well, right? That's still a business. What do you see as a CPA? What do you encounter with small business owners when it comes to the mistakes that they make when it comes to their record keeping and everything that comes along with the operations and the accounting with the small business?
Yeah, I think similar to the point you alluded to is when it comes down to running a business, there are a ton of different factors that you got to think about. I mean, there is the actual craft of what you need to deliver. There's also the operational side. There's HR. I mean, there's finance. There's different compliance types of things. There's all these different factors, and I think to be honest, a business owner, including myself, you're probably going to be really good at maybe one or two of those things. The other areas you need to have at least a basic foundation to understand what's going on in those areas where you may not necessarily be the one doing it, or if you're just starting off, maybe you have to be the one doing it until you can afford to hire somebody else to do it for you. But I think what happens for a lot of business owners is they go into business, they focus on the one thing that they are the best at or that they are good at, and they put all of their attention there and they lose sight of all the other areas. And finance becomes that area because a lot of times when business owners want to apply for a loan, there are certain things that they don't have in place concerning their finances. And then let's say they want to apply for a grant. I mean, recently in Charlotte over the last 2 years, there have been some grant programs that came out, and in order to apply, you had to use your financial statements as part of the application. The sad part is they didn't have that information, which meant they couldn't participate in the grant program, which means they immediately got disqualified. And some of that is just like, man, that didn't have to be the case because it's not that challenging to get the information that you need, but you do have to have a good understanding behind it if you're going to get the right things.
Right. And I think that as small business owners, especially solopreneurs, right? Because when I started, I was a solopreneur until I was able to begin to hire other virtual assistants and other contractors. But I think what happens is, like you said, we get so caught up in the day to day. With me, I was so busy when I first started making sure my clients were okay, right? I had to make sure that my customer, and I had high level, high demand clients, so I did not have time, honestly. By the time they got done with me, and they're my friends here on Facebook, so if they hear this, they're probably gonna laugh. Um, but I didn't have time, like literally. And by the time I got home, by the time I'm dealing with one or two high level clients, demanding clients, 60, 65, 70 hours a week, all I wanted to do was go home and go to bed. And I think that's the story of a lot of small business owners. Like, we have the hustle, we have the drive, right? I even have some operational experience. I know how to do bookkeeping. But by the time I got done with them, the last thing I wanted to do, look, I barely had enough energy at the end of the month, listen, to send out the invoice. That was the extent of my bookkeeping at that time. And I was relying heavily on my bank statements to let me know what was going on with my money. And when tax time came, and this is where I'm going with this, you all. When tax time came, though, I'm taking my little bank statements to my tax guy, and he's looking at me like, what do you want me to do with this? Right? I went through and I'm highlighting things, I'm writing notes. And I say this because I know I'm not the only one. And these are the people that I appeal to with my organization, right? I'm very passionate about helping people who are good at doing business, but they need to learn how to do it right, right? That's my niche. That's my passion, because those people are just like I was. So I'm highlighting things on the bank statement. And he's looking at me like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Do you know, first of all, it's tax time. I don't even have time to deal with this. So I need to give you an extension and I'll see you after tax season. But but he got me straight, and I thank God for him. I can't even remember that man's name, but I promise you, I learned so much from him about everything that I was doing wrong. Now he gave me credit for everything I was doing right. He got me started on the right path, but I didn't even. I think sometimes we don't even realize how important it is because we're so busy worrying about our customers, making sure our people get paid, that everything else gets lost in the weeds. And so and again, so speaking of taxes, right? When tax times comes, you all, as business owners, it's so important that you have these numbers together. So Terrell, tell us also about some nightmare stories. I like getting into some juicy things. So some nightmare examples, right? You don't have to use any names, wink wink. But some nightmare examples that you've seen or heard about as a CPA. I remember when we were talking, you even mentioned a list that's out there on the internet that you don't want to be on. So why don't you tell our listeners about that?
Yeah, so I mean, my wife and I used to do a podcast, and there was one segment we called Tax Tea. And in Tax Tea, what we would do is we would actually go through some of the, I guess it's called a governance page. If you go to the IRS website, you can look at IRS governance, and what it's going to do is it's going to show you a list of all of the people who have been found guilty for some type of IRS tax crime. And these people are getting prison time. These people are having fines, and they still have to pay back the taxes that they missed. So one of the things that we would do is we would just go through and we would actually just talk about what some of the stories were and how avoidable the issue was. And some of the common ones that we see a lot of times, we are just like, man, there was no reason for that person to get in trouble with that. Like, there was just some basic understanding. And so what we did is we created what we call a stay out of jail plan, where we've looked at some of the horror stories and said, all right, how are we going to help give people the information to stay out of jail? And so like one of those was just literally filing your tax return. A lot of times what we would see is people got in trouble because they were like, oh, well, I know I owe money and I just don't want to file it yet because I don't have the money. And it's like, the IRS already knows that you owe them money. So it's not like you're putting it off. Only thing you're doing is you're delaying the inevitable. And if you wait too long, the IRS is going to start coming after you because they already know that you haven't paid taxes. And we just kind of walk through like how some people think they're gaming the system when I'm like, no, they already know you're delinquent. They just haven't started coming after you yet. And we would see that so many times of just people just feeling like, well, if I don't file my taxes, they won't know that I owe them money. I'm like, no, they already know. It's just they're just adding on penalties. So when you finally do file your taxes, like I was talking to someone, they hadn't filed their taxes for a few years, and we were going through the numbers, and I was like, well, based on this, you owe about $80,000 in taxes. Now, when we add on all the penalties, that adds on another $30,000 in penalties because you hadn't filed. And I'm like, had you filed, you probably could have asked for a payment plan, which we would have avoided some of these penalties. But because you didn't file, because you thought that, hey, if I don't file, they won't know. I'm like, that's not how it works.
No, out of sight, out of mind. That doesn't, no. And I think and here it's going back to knowing your customers. Your customers just and we'll touch on this in the seminar, you all. But your customers, if they're going to pay you, they are going to send the IRS a 1099 reporting how much they paid you. And this is why the IRS knows how much money you made. You may get lucky if you have an irresponsible business owner that does not send in 1099s, but most reputable companies and most of the people that you want to go after, the people that can actually pay you they are going to report what you are owed, and then the IRS is going to, then the state is going to know how much you made as well. So it just pays. And please don't make the mistake of thinking just because you're a small business or that you're a startup business that having your finances in order and knowing these documents that we're going to talk about, your cash flow statement, your balance sheet, your profit and loss statement, please don't think that you're too small to know what this is, because you need to start on the right foot. Get yourself in the right habit. Don't do like I did and show up at your CPA's office with bank statements. This was in 2010, y'all. I learned my lesson, but I learned my lesson fast. With bank statements, and you with post-it notes and scribbling, and you're trying to say, well, this was a hotel for this meeting, and I traveled here for this, and and you're looking at that time MapQuest to try to get your mileage so you can write that. Listen, start off on the right foot. If you don't know how, or if you're not doing it right, you need to be a part of what we're doing, because we're going to teach you and we're going to talk about this stuff in greater detail. Okay, so listen, you guys, you got to understand, it's important that you know this. It's important that you pay your taxes. It's important. We're even going to touch on a few tax write-offs that you may not know about, right? We don't want to give the government all of our money, but you still have to pay. You still have to pay those taxes, okay?
Yeah.
So
One
listen,
thing
we
I wanted
are.
to say, can I say one more thing on that?
You sure can.
So I was back in January. I was in DC at my cousin's wedding, and one of the gentlemen that I met at the wedding, he actually works. He's an enforcement officer within the IRS, so his job is investigating crimes. Like he leads a team. They investigate, tax crimes and stuff like that. And one of the things that I was talking to him about, and we were talking about some of the cases, and he was like, you know most people think that because their case is so small, or they're not, embezzling or involved with millions of dollars, that the IRS really isn't going to pay attention to them. And fortunately, that has been the case for them in the past. But when you think about all of the AI and the technology that's coming in, a lot of times the AI can actually start analyzing and finding those issues a lot faster, to where the IRS is literally working on putting in computer programs where they used to only have to focus on the really big cases, to where now they'll have the ability to connect those dots. I mean, to what you were saying, Sherry, like if you do business with someone and they pay your company, they're going to file a 1099. Now the AI will be able to go in the system and see how many 1099s were filed, how much income shows up on the 1099s, and then they're going to look, did your firm file a tax return? If you didn't file a tax return, it's going to immediately flag as, hey, there's an issue here, because this company says they paid them, but they didn't file a tax return. Something's missing, and you're probably going to start seeing a lot more enforcement, even down to the smaller businesses, because the technology is just going to allow them to be able to analyze it so quickly. And Sherry, I think you might be on mute. Mhm.
Thank you. I was on mute. Oh, I'm sorry about that, guys. Even with with loans, guys, the technology, like Terrell was just saying, I know bankers, I know consultants who used to be in the banking field. And listen, you can't even go and present some fake numbers. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that too, because of technology. They have a software now, baby. They will go right in your bank account. They just to look to see if what you are saying on paper is even close to what your bank records are reflecting. So technology, listen, all those days of being nickel slick, as my friend likes to say, listen, they're coming to an end. And I think even after, especially after what happened with COVID and that big mess and all the people that got all of this money, because it wasn't regulated properly, they're really going to crack down. So you need to know how to do this properly. Don't let what we're telling you also intimidate you. Don't let it be, don't let it scare you. If you're doing what you're supposed to do, you have nothing to worry about, right? If you know what you're doing and you hire someone who knows what they're doing, and you get yourself a good bookkeeper and you get yourself a good CPA, right? Who's honest and integral like Terrell, you'll be good to go. You will be good to go. It may hurt you all. I want you to change your mentality. If you have to cough up an $80,000 tax bill, I don't want you to look at it that way. Just thank God that you were able to make enough money to have to pay that level of a tax bill. So, it just kind of just goes back to mentality. But still, so speaking of your CPA and your bookkeeper, let's talk about the difference between the bookkeeper and the CPA and their roles
Yes.
in business.
So when you think about a bookkeeper, they're focused on really helping you kind of understand, all right, how your money's coming in and going out of your business. So they're going to help you get financial statements. That way you kind of understand what's happening to my money. Now, the CPA, on the other hand, they're going to focus on the tax compliance and making sure that you're in line with the necessary rules and guidelines there. And so their focus is going to be two different things. The bookkeeper is giving you information that's going to help you operate your business more profitably and operate it better. The CPA is going to support you in making sure that you stay out of trouble with the IRS. And because they have two different focuses, you really do want to make sure that if you are working and you're paying someone to be the accountant to support your business, you need to ask some of those questions up front. And I know in the seminar, we're going to go into a lot more detail about what types of questions to ask. But what you want to understand when you're working with someone is, are they a bookkeeper focused or are they tax focused? And if they say that they are both, then okay, that's fair. That can be the case. But then you also want to ask, okay, all right, if you do both, what are some of the regular reports that you're going to provide me on a regular basis? Because
Mhm.
this is where I do have an issue with a lot of accounting firms, because some accountants who are just really focused on tax work, they'll tell you they do both because that allows them to charge you on a monthly basis and not just during tax
Wow.
time. So one of the tips that I always tell small business owners, if someone is doing both for you, you do want to ask them, what are the regular reports we're going to get on a monthly basis? Because you don't want to just wait until the end of the year, until tax time, to find out whether you made money or not. Like,
Wow.
you need to know that on a monthly basis to where you're looking and you're seeing your numbers. Now, in saying that, you do have to be prepared. There will be a cost that will come with that. That's not going to be free labor. So you do have to be smart about, like, hey, can I afford to hire both a bookkeeper and a tax person? If you can't afford to hire both, then there's some things you can do to make sure that you can keep up with that yourself. So when you get the tax season, it's a lot smoother of a process.
Right. And we're going to talk about that too, because I couldn't afford, when I first started, I could not, year one, I could not afford a CPA, right? And like I said, my tax guy, he got me together. He connected me, and this is where I had to learn QuickBooks. This is where I had to learn QuickBooks, and shout out to Intuit, one of our partners with NBBOA. And this is, I had to suck it up, even though I was tired. Like I said, but by then they started getting the automation in place so I could, connect it to my bank account. It took a lot of the work out of it, and it's even better now. But like you said, there are ways to get around that, but still, but there's no way to get around, knowing what your cash flow looks like, knowing how to read your balance sheets, and knowing what that profit and loss statement, and knowing what that means. And with that, can you just give a super high level definition of those three financial statements, because those are the most highly requested?
Yeah, so when you come down to your profit and loss, I mean, similar to what the name tells us, it's going to tell you whether you have a profit or whether you have a loss. It's going to look at your revenue minus your expenses and tell you, did you make money or did you lose money? And then your balance sheet is really going to keep track of what you own versus what you owe. So it's looking at, the cash that you have. It's looking at if you own any like vehicles or buildings or property in the name of the business. Now, this isn't your personal ownership. This is in the name of the business. What does the business own? And then it's going to look at what you owe, like your credit card, any loans that you have, because what it's trying to understand is, do you have any equity left after you cover all of the debt you owe? Like if we subtract out your credit cards, all the loans you have, is there any value left in your business? And then the cash flow statement, that's going to tell us how cash moves in and out of your business. Because a lot of times, what a business owner may look at and say, oh, we have money in the bank, then we're good. But if you're trying to, let's say, make a big deal or a big contract in the business, or you're trying to work with a bank to get you a loan, or you're trying to work with some type of certification program, they may ask to look at your cash flow statement because they want to understand, did the money in your bank account actually come from your customers who actually buy your services or your products, or is that money you put in your business as an owner, or did that money come from loans that you have? Because what we know is, if most of the money in your bank account is not coming from your customers actually buying your products or your services, chances are your business is probably pretty risky, because there's only so much money that you as an owner can put in, and there's only so many loans that you can go get. So your cash flow statement kind of helps break that down and explain it to
Awesome, awesome. See, I told you guys, he'll explain it better than I did.
you.
But now you guys are getting an idea of why Terrell is recognized by the New York Times. You're getting an idea of why he's an award-winning CPA. Listen, it's because of this right here. His ability to simplify accounting for us who are not necessarily bean counters, right? That's not our thing. My thing is administration. My thing is operations, from more of an administrative standpoint, not necessarily finance, right? That's where I shine. So, and you know where you shine, or what you're passionate about as a business owner or a startup business owner. And this is why we're saying that you need to attend this workshop, because you need to know how to lay the foundation. This is your foundation between your accounting, your finances, and your operations, your processes and your procedures. That's the foundation and the heartbeat of your company. I cannot stress it to you enough. If your numbers are off, if your processes and procedures are off, baby, you just got a hobby. You have a hobby, okay? And that's exactly how you'll be running your business. And you'll be all over the place, and you'll be, scrambling at the end of the year. And that is not what you want to do. You want to run your business in excellence. Having your numbers not only correct, having your numbers in order, not only, and I mentioned this last week, it doesn't just open up the opportunity for access to capital, but it also, and Terrell mentioned it earlier in the show, it also opens up opportunities for grants. It opens up opportunities for government contracts. It opens up the opportunity for corporate contracts. It opens up the opportunity, guys, for you to be able to take advantage of the minority business certifications that are available to us. But if your numbers are not correct, you are not going to get certified. So this is why, and You might be thinking small, well, I just have a little cake shop. But listen, if your numbers are correct and you can get certified, you can end up catering corporate events and making way more money than what you're making now. You are in business to build a future for you and your generations ahead. You are in business so that you can buy some assets. You're not in business, most of us are not in business just because we need something to do. If you're just doing it just because you need something to do, this webinar may not be for you. It's a hobby. But if you're serious about business and doing it right, I strongly, strongly encourage you to click the link that I have in the description and register for this seminar. Right now, we have it at a discounted rate all the way up until August the 30th. After August 30th, you're going to pay the full price of $149. Now, I'm giving you a taste right here of the knowledge that you're gonna get. And Terrell hasn't even turned the jets on, okay? He hasn't. We're doing some super high level stuff today, right? But if you want to get into the meat of what it takes for your business, you need to register for this seminar, right? We're giving you some good tea right now. We're giving you some really good tea and some teasers, but you need to register, okay? Because and again, and another thing, it as a startup business, right? Let's say that you are looking to participate in a pitch contest, right? A Shark Tank type of deal. They have a lot of those contests throughout the city of Charlotte or wherever you may be, right? You even have to have your numbers together for that. And when Terrell and I were talking last week, he was telling me about two people that he mentored, and they participated in a pitch contest and they won. And you know why they won? They won because of their numbers. The people who you are pitching to, they're not just looking at whether or not you have a good product. They're not just looking at the service. They want to know that you know what you're doing when it comes to money. So I'm going to let Terrell tell you about that, because that had me, I don't know, it might not affect you the same way it affected me, but I was like really amped up after he told me that story. So
Yeah,
tell us
so
about that, Terrell.
so what I would do from time to time is partner with some of the community colleges and different organizations that really train, and they're trying to help entrepreneurs really get their idea to the next level. And some of those times what they're doing is they're giving out funding for people who want to come in and pitch their business. And so you would hear all of these businesses that have great ideas, and what they asked me to do, they said, "Hey, can you actually kind of coach them on the finance side? Because the area where people have the biggest weakness is explaining the finance side of their idea." And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. So I set aside, an hour of time to meet with each of the people. I made it available to everyone who was going through the competition. So there were like 15 people in the final round. Six of them took me up on the offer, and they came in, and it was no charge for them. So six of them came in and we talked through their idea. And then I kind of mapped out, okay, based on what you're telling me, here's what the numbers look like. And I said, hey, you got to be able to tell this part of your story. And so they went in, they did their pitch, and two of the six people that I worked with one-on-one, they won first and second place, which meant they were able to get the money that they needed to invest to take their idea to the next level. And when I talked to the judges, one of the things the judges came back to me and said is the difference was they knew how to talk about their idea, and they knew how to talk through the numbers as it related to their idea. Because at the end of the day, we're not just trying to give money away to who has the best idea. We want to give money away to the person who has the best business idea. And when you're looking at the business, you want to look at more than just the product or the service. You want to look at the full picture, and being able to talk through the numbers make the difference. And I heard the same thing on my podcast when I've been fortunate to interview a couple of people who have gone through Shark Tank on, where they've gone on television, their episodes have been aired, and I talked to them about like, what is that process like? And they said, hey, everybody's really good at their pitch, but usually the only people who really walk away with a deal that they're happy with are the people who went in the room actually knowing their numbers. Because
Mm.
one guy was telling me, he was like, he was there pitching his idea, and he was like, he was getting good energy from Damon John and Mark Cuban were loving the idea. And he was like, the bottom fell out of everything once they started asking me questions about the numbers. He
Oh.
was like, when they got to that point, every one of the sharks said, no, this is not a deal for me. And
Oh
he
my
was like,
gosh.
just seeing that experience in that, to where it's like his hope for where he could take his business completely dropped because he didn't understand how to talk about the numbers side of his business. And I'm like, man, there's so many people that are struggling with that just because they don't spend time and understand how to talk about that part of their business.
Hmm. And here's the thing, and for guys, and if you're just starting, and you haven't really gotten started with your business, again, you need to know this stuff, and you need to know for your business plan how to do your cash flow projections. Now that's where that is the least. I'm gonna be honest. That is the least favorite part for me of doing a business plan. I hate it. I hate that part. I can be real, and I know I am not the only one. Even with mentoring for SCORE, I'm a SCORE mentor. Well, it should be official soon, right? And when the mentees come to us, that is the place right there. The last two calls that I was on, they're working on their business plans were dynamic. They're like, these numbers. Ugh. So you, even as a startup, you need to know how to do your cash flow projections, right? I want Terrell to touch on that, and I'm going to be listening intently again because this is not my favorite part. Now, a lot of us, you might be like me and like, you know what? I'm going to tell somebody what I want to do, and I'm going to pay somebody to do them for us, and that's fine, right? But you still need to understand what's on that paper, because at the end of the day, that person you paid might not be with you in the banker when it's time to, what, like he just said, to talk about your numbers, right? So you still need
Hmm.
to know what's going on. So just touch on cash flow projections for me
Yeah.
as well, for those who are just getting started, because I have a lot of people who are just getting started who are interested in this webinar.
So one of the things that I always say to people, even in the early stages, like, you can attract a lot of the right attention
Mm,
if you know how to talk about this topic. Like,
mm,
you may not even have gotten your idea off the ground. You may still be in the pre-launch stage, but if you can speak to your cash flow projections, you tend to attract the right type of people who will either come along and help you win big deals, or they'll say, hey, I got some money to invest to help you get this thing rolling and to really go. Because to really talk about the cash flow piece of it, you got to have a little bit of discipline. And, without going into all of the details that we're going to go through in the session, I'll just summarize it this way. When you're looking at your cash flow, where a lot of people make mistakes is they say, hey, we're going to sell this product for X amount of dollars, or we're going to offer this service for X amount of dollars. And they're looking at their revenue, but they don't really actually look at it and say, okay, all right, when are you actually going to collect the money? I get that you're going to do the work and you're going to send them the invoice, but we got to actually think about the timing of when will the money actually hit your bank account. And then we also got to look and we got to say, okay, all right, what are your expenses going to be? And when are you going to pay your suppliers, or when are you going to pay your vendors, all the companies you're working with? And then when we start to look at that, we can see, okay, all right, when cash comes in minus when cash comes out.
mm,
Well, what tends to be a common problem for a lot of business owners is they have cash going out faster than cash is coming in. And when you look at it that way, it's like it becomes very obvious to you that this is going to be a problem. Like,
right.
you can't survive doing that. Like, if you have cash going out the door faster than you have cash coming in, you're going to have a problem. And the thing about the cash flow forecast is when you kind of write that out and you map it out, you can see it ahead of time and say, well, all right, here is what we are going to do to address this problem. And if you are thinking about that, and if you can speak to, here's what we are going to do to address this problem, what it does is it builds other people's confidence that, wow, this person is serious about their business.
Right.
I either need to sign a contract with them, or I need to invest in what they're doing, because this person shows the signs of a person who is going to be successful because they're thinking ahead about these things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I even saw some grant opportunities, guys, for for startups, and they're few and far between, as I told you guys, in financing your business in any level. But again, what separates the women from the girls and the men from the boys in those situations is going to be your numbers. Can you, like Terrell just said, build confidence in that grant maker, that you know what you're going, you know what you're doing, and you know exactly, and they can trust you because they're looking at that. They're looking at how you even project to run to spend the money. They're looking at all of that stuff. They're not just saying, "Oh, this is a great idea. Let me give them $50,000." They want to know that you're going to do what you're supposed to do, that you're going to be responsible, that you have your accounting in place, all of that stuff, guys. It I can't stress it to you enough. And I know I keep saying it, and I may sound like a broken record, but I need to sound like a broken record, because these are the stories that I hear every day. These are the stories that the bankers hear every day. These are the stories that the CDFIs hear every day, right? And there are a lot of organizations out here like mine and other organizations that will help you. And there are great webinars like this one. This is going to be boot camp style, right? You need to come in here and learn what you and invest in yourself. This is not one of those $25 seminars that I do. No, you need to come in here, and we're going to be getting down to the nitty gritty on some things, right? But you have to be willing to invest in your business. Okay, and this is a tax write-off. Okay, you can write it off on your, am I correct? Okay, this is a tax write-off, so make sure you record it properly. All right.
Yes.
Just want to
And
throw
one of the
that in
things,
there. Okay, but don't let what we're
so
telling you again overwhelm you. Okay, don't
mhm,
let it overwhelm you. Don't think it's, oh my God, that what they're saying, it just sounds so intensive. And it's really, once you get into it, guys, it's not as bad as you think it is. I used to do that. I'd be like, oh my God. You know, sometimes we overthink things. But then when you start really crunching those numbers and start looking at your numbers, it gives you better direction for your business. You don't feel you
mhm.
feel more confident as a business owner when you know your numbers and when you know what's going on. It helps you to be a better business person. Terrell, you had something to say?
Yeah, so I want to talk about a couple of stories, a couple of examples, just kind of help give people a context on it. So we talked about the pitch competition where, I gave some people some coaching, and I just gave them coaching in a 1 hour meeting. And like I said, they went out and they were able to win several $1,000s in those pitch competitions. I was working with another couple in a small town in South Carolina. If you're familiar with South Carolina, Newberry, South Carolina is not a big city at
Right.
all. But was working with a couple that had a bakery. They had one location, and within a year and a half of really working, helping them understand their numbers, they have 3 locations with a mobile truck as well, to where they've been able to expand their business. And just by giving them some context now, they didn't have a business background. The wife is just an amazing baker, and the husband just, he actually used to work in the railroad industry, to where that
Wow.
wasn't their background. But by getting the right context, they were able to start making smarter decisions and expand. And then also, I was working with a gentleman who wanted to start a restaurant, and he just loved cooking at home. He would cook for different events and really helped him lay things out to the point now that he has 3 different locations. Plus, they have a food truck that they're going out, and he's really on top of his numbers, to where he's been able to qualify for over $300,000 in grants and being able to secure multiple loans to continue, really investing in his dream there. And we've also worked with some service providers, people who are like, hey, I got a service that we want to provide, but I'm not really sure how to go about it. And really working with them on like, hey, here's how you should explain your numbers. And they were able to secure some really big contracts to where they used to only work with really small contracts and they were working a lot. And I was like, well, what if you started working with larger companies? You could charge more for the same exact amount of work. Now they're making about 3 times what they were making before, but they're actually working less because they qualified to work with bigger contracts. Because when the price tag goes up, they were like, well, we used to have to work with 30 different clients to make the same amount of money we're now making with 5 clients, which means it's a lot less stressful for them and they get a lot more peace of mind in the business that they're building. And a lot of it really goes back to really breaking it down and understanding these numbers. And so, one of the things that I'm looking forward to in this workshop is we're really going to break it down piece by piece and kind of give you a framework so that it makes it a lot easier for you to understand. Because I am very big on really creating framework for people because I recognize that it's a lot of information to take in if I just dump it all on you. But if I give you a framework and we go piece by piece, it's going to make so much more sense because that is what, allowed us to be recognized in the New York Times. It's what allowed us to be recognized as a global finance influencer because people consistently come to us and say, wow, the way you explained it, it makes so much more sense now. Like, I've never heard it explained that way. We even have accountants who come to us and say, the way you explain it makes so much more sense. Like, I want to learn from you so I can explain it this way to my clients. Because when you really break it down and give people that framework, I think you really set people up for success. So the people who are coming to this workshop are going to be set up for another level of success.
Awesome. That is awesome. That is awesome. And guys, Terrell has a free tool that he's gonna be giving away. We're not just gonna you're not gonna leave. You're gonna leave with that knowledge and you're gonna leave with a couple of little freebies and I'm gonna talk about how we can help you at NBBOA. I'm telling you, we are here to make sure that you are successful, guys. I can't, and most of my audience on my main Facebook page, most of you all are like, my friends in ministry and all of that good stuff. Listen, you need to be a part of it too. Because guess what? Churches have cash flow statements, okay? Churches have profit and loss statements, all right? Don't think it's just for a traditional for-profit business. You have a balance sheet too, okay? So you need to be a part of this seminar as well. Don't think it's just for your traditional for-profit business. If you have accounting, if you have any type of accounting, whether you're a nonprofit, a for-profit, whether you're a ministry, you can benefit from the knowledge that Terrell is going to. I'm going to be front and center with my iPad. Do you hear me? I'm going to be there taking good notes as well. Okay, because listen, I need to know this. I need it broken down to me the way he's going to break it down. Okay, like you all heard me try to explain it last week. You all heard me. You need to hear him do it, okay?
And I will say, I'll reiterate your point on with the churches as well, because we do have a couple of church clients. Like I was doing a call last week with a pastor of a church, and we were just talking through, kind of looking at their forecast because, and he was honest with me, and he said, and because I asked him, like, hey, how have you guys approached budgeting, Pat? He was like, to be honest with you, Terrell, we really haven't. We just kind of looked at the bank account, the money was there, we just went out and we did it, but it really wasn't us being really good stewards. And he was like, especially as a church, I mean, you want to be good stewards, because one is, you're not dealing with your own money. You're dealing with people who bought into the vision of what you are doing. So you
That's
want to
right.
make sure that you have a better plan and better procedures in place to really actually manage that well.
That's
And
right.
I got a call last week. Well, actually, you know what? It was a call 2 days ago from a church that had a question. They were asking me some questions about payroll taxes and stuff, because they were like, hey, we got this notice about this. And we were talking through it. And I'm just like, man, like somebody on their team should have had a good understanding of it, because now they're probably going to be out a few $1,000s because somebody
Mm-hmm.
made a mistake that they could have avoided had they had the right information in place. And so I will definitely say the stuff we're going to talk about in the stay out of jail plan will
Yes.
definitely be applicable to any organization. What we're going to talk about was really understanding how money moves in your business. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to be very relevant. And then also talk about how do you start to use that to make money moves and be more strategic about what's happening in your business. That's going to be helpful for any type of organization.
That's
Because I think, to what you said, if you have money changing hands, you need to be in this session.
That's right. That's right. And and for my faith, my fellow faith-based community, we all know biblically what the Bible. We all know what the Bible says about in Habakkuk, about writing the vision and making it plain so that the readers can take that vision and run with it. Right? This is part of writing your vision. Part of writing your vision is not just your mission statement. It's not just your vision statement. It's not just what you want to do for the community, but you need to include your numbers in that vision. And that's another lesson I learned from way back in the day. I wasn't thinking that way. All we're thinking about as pastors sometimes and as leaders and community leaders is, again, just like business owners, we're worried about our customers, we're worried about our parishioners, we're worried about, but we are not thinking, we're not thinking deeply enough about how important those numbers are. So you need to be in this session as well. Okay, because this is going to benefit you. So many of you inbox me, you call me, you ask me, do you know any place where I can get a grant for this, that, and the other? Or do you know a grant writer? You have to be prepared before you even go to that grant writer. If you're gonna save some money and some time, because those numbers are going to matter, whether you're a church or not. Okay, so I want to talk to everybody who's on my page. I have business owners and mostly people who are in ministry on my main Facebook page. So I'm talking to you as well, my fellow ministers in the gospel. You need to get in here too. Please don't think it's just for-profit businesses, okay? You need to be here. Okay, because there is money out here for us to do ministry. There's money out here. There's money out here for community-based, faith-based grants. There's all kinds of stuff, but your numbers have to be right. You can't just go in there and give them some bank statements and an idea. It's not going to fly, okay? It's just not going to fly. Just like the for-profit business, you can't just give them a business plan and think that's it, okay? It just doesn't work that way. There's a list of things that you need, but at the core of all of those things that I just talked about are your numbers. So listen, the
Absolutely.
information is at the top of this or the bottom of this. We're on YouTube, wherever it lands on my social media pages. You need to register for this seminar. It is Saturday, September the 14th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We are doing this on the internet. We're doing this via Zoom. It will be recorded, so we will be able to send it out to each and every one of you after the session is over. Like I said, you're going to get some goodies. We're going to, I keep saying Terrell's going to do most of the teaching. I'm going to say what I have to say, but 90% of it is going to be him. I'm just going to probably, do what I'm doing right now, which is stress to the importance of what you need to do and have some, and I'm going to talk about some basic things that you need to have in place, right, in addition to the numbers. And then I'm going to let him run, okay, and I'm going to have my iPad and I'm gonna buy a keyboard to go with my iPad so I can just sit here and keep and take notes myself. All right, you guys, you don't want to miss it. Now, I've given you a taste of what this is going to be like. Okay, we're going to keep you out of jail. We're going to teach you how to get your numbers right so you can open up opportunities for yourself, right? For your business or ministry. We're just gonna go over your cash flow statements, your profit and loss statements, your balance sheets. You heard a high level definition of what that is, right? I'm gonna just go over a little bit of what Intuit has to offer, right? A little tool that you can use in the meantime, right? I'm gonna just show you just because you got to do something, y'all. This is my page. I can be myself on here. Listen, I'm not on a big panel right now. You have to do something, okay? You need to connect. You need to get QuickBooks Online. I'm going to show you very, very briefly how easy it is to use once you have everything set up. The hardest part is setting it up, right? But they've made it so easy to connect with your business bank account. Did you hear me say your business bank account? I'm going to talk about that too. Don't mix your personal and your business finances together, please. Don't mix your church finances and your personal finances together, please. And then I'm just going to show you very briefly how you can use QuickBooks to help you keep up with some of this stuff and and work side by side with your bookkeeper and your CPA, right? There are some things that you need to sacrifice for as a business owner. And I understand starting out, you might not have it. So that's why I'm going to give you the tools to at least keep yourself in order as much as you possibly can. And then after I touch on that, I'm letting Terrell loose, okay? And we're just gonna let him do what he does best, okay? So listen, register, guys, register. And I'm gonna let Terrell close this out. And I hope we've just said something to you to make you think today, to just get you excited and to really get you to understand how important this is to the life and blood of your business. Terrell, go ahead and close us out today.
Yeah, so I just want to wrap up with a couple of just to go down a very quick list of these are the types of opportunities that businesses and nonprofit organizations miss out on
Mm.
because they don't have their numbers. First one
I
is going
wish
to
you on the
be
big screen for
loans.
this.
The first one is going to be loans. I mean, if you go into a bank, you don't have your numbers, you are not going to be able to qualify for the loans that are available. The bank is not going to make exceptions for you. Also, when it comes down to getting your business certification, like if you're applying for a minority business certification, they're going to ask for tax returns, they're going to ask for financial statements. If you don't have it, they're probably not going to make exceptions. When it comes down to grants and opportunities like that, grant applications, a lot of times they're going to ask for whether it's tax information or whether it's financial statements. If you don't have it, you're going to be immediately excluded. You also have different states offer earmark programs where the state sets aside money that they're going to give away to organizations, and any type of organization can apply. I know in the state of South Carolina, I recently worked with a company that qualified. They got over $350,000 of the money that was earmarked. And part of it was getting together that plan of what they were going to do with the money. And they were able to show, here's what we're asking for, here's what we're going to do, and here's how it's going to help the community. And they were able to secure over $350,000. And then you also want to look at whether it's pitch competitions. If you don't know your numbers, you don't have your numbers together, you're probably not going to attract the attention of the people who can award you money. And then also, I will say investors. If you don't have your numbers together, you are not going to attract the attention of investors who are willing to invest in what you are trying to do. So, in those key areas, if you don't know your numbers, you're missing out on huge opportunities in all of those areas.
That is so important. I forgot about the investors, y'all. Forgot about the investors. That is so good. So listen, you heard it here. This is why that if you didn't hear anything else, you heard what he just said, and now you know especially why you need to be a part of this seminar. Listen, click the link and register, and we will see you on Saturday, September the 14th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 1. Just give us your morning. Give us your morning to realign and help you readjust or help you start your business out on the right foot during the Black Business Startup Boot Camp. All right, listen, I can't wait to see you there. And thank you so much again for joining me for Marketplace Monday. All right.